Something stirs in my soul when I pray. Soft as a whisper it calls when I come away. Centered in a sacred space, Spirit meets me face to face, and I'm welcome every day, every day. Everything falls into place when I pray. All the doors open of my heart open wide, unafraid, filled with power as my knees hit the floor, lifting me higher than I was before. And I am changed when I pray. I pray, I pray, I pray. The peace that surpasses all understanding, all is lifted up. Loved ones, enemies, blessings, worries, God is there for me. Thank you pours out of me when I pray. Like a choir breaking free, just like rain. Pray, I pray. Everything falls into place when I pray. Something stirs in my soul when I pray.
Please join me in prayer. We know that there's only one perfect life, and that life is God. That life belongs to each and every one of us by divine inheritance, by divine decree, given to us by that power that becomes what it loves, makes things out of itself, and does so with us as unique, individualized expressions. We are so blessed and so pleased and grateful to come together here today to celebrate the power of prayer. There's no doubt that prayer changes things in all circumstances. And we're so grateful for this gift and grateful for the opportunity to learn to use it more effectively every day as we travel this earth in this human form. I know that everything that takes place here will be absolutely perfect in every way. And that Spirit will speak through Reverend Chris Lahiff, delivering a message that each and every one of us wants to hear and needs to hear here in this space, within the sound of my voice. And we give thanks for those light beings who are here in this space to help us celebrate the gift of affirmative prayer. We give thanks for everybody that listens to this later. We give thanks for everyone on planet Earth. We are especially grateful for all the folks who come together to help make this celebration perfect in every way, as it will be. And I release these words into the law that knows how to mold, make, shape, and create all the good there is everywhere all of the time. I let this go, I let it be. Together we affirm, and so it is. Well, I've got some words, and I hope they're inspirational. I thought they were pretty good, but that's me. I get to pick, And so if, we've got a lot of service opportunities. If somebody here has a collection of really pithy quotes that they think I'm ignoring, we can bring other people up to come and share some inspirational thoughts, because none of us is as smart as all of us. So keep that in mind. I know, you can come and maybe none of you can be another Mickey Mark, but I'm sure that you'll be entertaining in some way. So, our first words are from the Deepak Chopra. The source of all creation is pure consciousness, pure potentiality seeking expression from the unmanifest to the manifest. And when we realize that our true self is one of pure potentiality, we align with the power that manifests everything in the universe. Our second set comes from John B. Waterhouse. Everything we think, say, and do is a prayer, and every bit of it is having a direct and significant effect on our lives. From our founder, the Honorable Dr. Ernest Holmes, the realization of the presence of God is the most healing agent there is. We've got young Christopher Lahiff here, licensed CSL minister, who's been of great service to us over the last year. And he came to us from Cape Coral, Florida, where he served as spiritual director down there. But he's been on tour. I mean, he was there in Orlando. He's been of service in my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio, at the Miracle Center. And I didn't even know about CSL. Didn't know our paths would cross. How about that? That's marvelous. In Connecticut as well. So, and he has done his utmost to say yes when I've asked him to come. I'm working on getting him here one more Sunday, so you don't have to suffer through multiple weeks of me before the holidays to drag you down. So, that said, and he's been busy. It's been a busy day. He was at the Althea Center this morning, and what a brilliant young man. It's a privilege to have you here. I'm so glad you're here. And after you check in with the master scheduler, I hope we can steal you for one more Sunday before the year is out. Without further ado.
Thank you, Russell. Well, good afternoon, everybody. What a great day. Clydeen, thank you for all of your service that provides an opportunity for people to be here. That's awesome. For anybody that doesn't know, on top of the 4 to 5 years that it takes to become a certified practitioner, to become an emeritus practitioner, 20 years of dedicated service. So, that's amazing. Every second of it making the world a better place. Every second. Okay. So I want to ask a question, and if you're comfortable, I'll ask for a show of hands. Who here wants to live in a world that treats people more kindly? All right. That's why I love Centers for Spiritual Living. That's why I love it. So the good news is, just by having that desire within you, you already are. You're already connecting to a world that's created in mind. There is already a world that is continually growing in kindness, fairness, equity, all of those things that make a world that works for everyone. And so that's powerful. Just knowing that inspiration, that desire within you is a sign to you that it's real, that you can experience that, and it begins up there. So I want to talk a little bit. We're finishing up on the book Creative Mind for the month, and today it's about practice. And the practice is affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment, as Ernest Holmes called it. And so we're going to get there, but we're going to take a kind of a winding road to do it. So one thing that I think is important, the world that I experience is different than the world that you experience. There's no two people in this room, no two people in the entire world who experience the exact same world. Because the world that we experience, we affect it, and it affects us through all of our experiences, our history, our upbringing, traumas, celebrations and joys. All of those things become part of our individual expression of who we are, and then that affects how we experience the world. And it's just like you can't know how you look through somebody else's eyes. You'll never know. Like there's only, well, as many people as you've ever met or who have ever known about you, there's that many versions of you that exist in mind. And nobody knows the same you, just the same way that nobody knows the same world. And so this leads us into this idea that we have a little bit more control over the world that we experience. So, considering there's 8 billion people on the planet, there's 8 billion different realities that we are experiencing. There's a little maybe overlap and similarities, but no two peoples are exactly the same. And then, where it gets even more interesting is, take me, my world, the world I experience. I could tell you all about it, but we don't have time for that. But at this very moment, in any given moment, I'm going to use an example. Like right now, I could just say, oh no, I don't want to do this, and I can scream and run right out the doors. But if I ever would like to have Russell invite me back, I'm not going to choose that reality. I'm going to keep going on a timeline over here. But in any given microsecond, there's an infinite amount of choices and things that you could do. And each one of those choices, as soon as you think about it, that's a reality. You're creating that in mind. You may not see it out here, but it is a whole new timeline. There is a timeline that now exists that has me running out that door, and Russell texted me later like, dude, what happened? That was crazy. So there's a whole timeline there that exists in imagination. So when we start to play with that idea, we learn that this world that we exist in is a lot more malleable than we might believe. So one thing that I really love, and I've probably spoken about it here before, I like the idea. I love the mystical, I love metaphysical things, I love magic. And I also know from my left brain thinking that I was consistent with growing up, that there's skeptics. And so I love exploring ideas about why things, metaphysical principles and laws, why they work. And is there a practical, pragmatic explanation for these things? And so when we have these thoughts in mind, when we have the desire, I want to see a world that is constantly becoming more and more kind and supporting more and more people. I want to see that world. And so when I plant that seed in my subconscious mind, I will start to see it. I know I've talked here before about the reticular activating system, so I won't go too deep into that. But it's that mechanism in our brain that filters out information for us of what it thinks is important, because we can't take in everything. And so when we start to think about something, we start to see that reflected to us in the world. So just by having that intention, I want to see more kindness, my mind will point out, hey, over there's somebody being kind. Or it might point out over here, this is a moment to practice kindness. Or, what's been interesting, as these interesting times that we're in, it'll point out things to me, and this is where it can be kind of even hard. But I'm so grateful because just a couple weeks ago, it pointed things out to me where I still have a lot of growth to do. I'll go into it briefly, but it was something that was even alarming to me. We have a dog, and she's a sweet, golden doodle. It wasn't my choice to pick out a golden doodle, but we got a golden doodle. And occasionally she likes to get things off the counter. Well, back in Christmas, we had an episode where we had a house guest, and he was building this amazing gingerbread Trojan horse thing. I mean, amazing. And I think I was under a lot of stress at the time. I'm making excuses for myself right now. And it's kind of like Wayne Dyer talks about, when you squeeze an orange, what are you going to get out of it? You're going to get orange juice. So when you're squeezed, what's going to come out of you? Well, all those, probably the parts of yourself that you don't even want to acknowledge exist there. And that's what happened. Back then, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because it happened again a couple weeks ago, but I had a whole new reflection. I freaked out back then. I didn't think anybody was in the house, and I'm yelling and screaming at the dog, which is not who I want to be. The dog's never been hit, but I realized it was just as violent and just as awful by trying to scare that dog into not doing it again. It happened again a couple weeks ago, and our window was open, and I'm like, oh my God. My neighbors were sitting outside, and I'm like, I screamed. But that time, as I've been tuning into really creating the world that I want to see, and seeing what's going on in the world that appears to be two different, completely different realities, and trying how can I help? How do I improve my own vibration? What do I want to see in the world? I'm like, oh, I've got work to do myself. And so that, while unfortunately Ethel is her name, paid the price, and I owe her, lots of extra love because of it, I received the gift. When I had that realization, I'm ashamed. I think my neighbors heard me, and that's embarrassing. But more than that, I am not being that kind person that I want to be. And so my world, I have planted that seed, and I'm starting to lean into this idea of the shift in consciousness that we talk about, that humanity is waking up, and it's been waking up for centuries, but it seems to be kind of this acceleration point. And I attribute a lot of it to the movements in the 60s, love, peace, all of that, I think really started this movement into more unity. But I feel like we're coming to a point to where we're seeing, what I see it as is that we're really moving out of a place of what has served us so well is our survival mechanisms of I, me, mine. I need to protect myself, and I need to protect my family at all costs. And this goes back to our very first times as a human being of that saber-toothed tiger, where you always had to be looking around the corner, what's going to get me? And we lived in a state of fear. And those were the people that survived that had that. The other people, they're like, oh, it's all good, it's all good. Chomp. Their bloodline ends right there. But others has gotten us here. So this is not a judgment or, a right or a wrong. It's just what is. And so I think we're moving out of a place of that really, in order for me to get ahead, means that somebody's going to have to lose a little bit. That's kind of our mentality. It was more of a competition, whereas what I see happening in inspiration pointing us towards is a cooperation. When we learn to recognize, wait a minute, I can actually get more by giving more. I can actually work with you, and we can both benefit here because we have enough resources. We have Mother Earth, nature, the universe provides us everything that we need. And so it is a time where many spiritual teachers are saying the same thing, we are moving to that reality. We're moving towards a tipping point where more people will be supported, more people will want to support. And as we're moving into that, it begins with our thoughts, with the reality that I live within. And so, seeing how one little shift. So I had a shift just a couple weeks ago when I had that realization, okay, I'm never yelling at my dog like that again. I can't believe I lost my temper when she was getting stuff off the counter. I can't believe I did that again. But up until that point, I didn't realize when it happened at Christmas, I was embarrassed. But my conscious brain didn't take it far enough to say, how are you going to make sure it never happens again? That's what happened this last time, and that's what a lot of the spiritual teachers are talking about. When we get closer, if your desire is to see an evolved humanity, inspiration is flowing. The universe responds. And so I see people all around that are tuning into these type teachings, that are tuning into these ideas, that there is something bigger than us, and we are that. And as more people, we're seeing it mainstream. I watch lots of different podcasts, and some of them are kind of what they would call the woo-woo side. But I stumbled across one that was interviewing somebody that I learned about on one of those woo-woo sites. But I forget how to say her name. Maim Balik. She's a real, okay, thank you. Yeah, Balik. Brilliant woman. She was an actor or actress for many years. But also, I believe she's got like her PhD in something. She's just really smart. And she's got a podcast. And she had this guy on here who channels wisdom from a group of beings that he calls the Z's. But I resonate with the guy because everything that he talks about is what I know or in my heart that I feel coming out. So it's going mainstream is where I'm trying to go at this point. And one last thing that I will address, going to the malleability of the universe. When I brought up those 8 billion different realities, different worlds that we have right here, and within me, there's infinite realities, and that's within everybody. So 8 billion times infinity, which the mathematicians are saying that's not a thing. You can't do that. But that many realities. This, what we're experiencing right now, Albert Einstein told us that the universe is an illusion, albeit a very, very persistent one. It really is. And I've had some colleagues that take issue with that. They're like, no, you can't say it's an illusion, because they think it somehow diminishes the importance of our reality. But it doesn't diminish anything. We're experiencing this for some purpose. It is too real and too powerful to not have a purpose. And so when we look at all 8 billion times infinity, multiverse, this is the multiverse. It all exists in mind. Now, I've seen diagrams that try to say this is the multiverse, here's the universe, here's the universe, here's the universe, here's the universe. Infinity can't sit next to infinity. So it's all here. Everything exists in infinite potential, and it all begins in mind. So the Deepak Chopra quote, reality is consciousness. That's it. Everything is just a thought. We have so much more power to change our world. So by having that realization last week, I've had realizations in the past where I had an aha. I remember one where it was right before, it was in March of 2020, and I realized, I want to see this world that works for everyone. But then something came to my mind that I've heard other science of mind ministers, I've heard other spiritual teachers talk about. There's this shift in consciousness where we're going to wake up and start to see more goodness and peace. And I've heard people say, oh yeah, man, it's happening. It probably won't happen in our lifetime, but it's definitely happening. And that for some reason on my drive to work, I had that realization, like, wait a minute, I've been subscribing to that same theory that I don't think it's possible it'll happen in my lifetime. And I'm like, why? We are creating. This life that I experience out here, it begins in here. So if I want to see it, I got to start by, absolutely it can happen in this world. I want to see it before I leave the world and leave my children behind. Because I don't want to see them go through any challenges, which is another thing that people say, for this shift to happen, it's going to have to, stuff's going to hit the fan. It's going to be bad. Like, does it really have to be? I got to think about the way I talk to myself in my head, because that's how my world is created. So if everything, that multiverse, exists in mind, I want to give an analogy of how we experience it and how we feel it. When you're in a dream, and say it's a nightmare and you're falling or somebody's chasing you or something's happened that's devastating, it feels so real. And then you wake up and you're like, oh, thank God. I'm okay. That was just a dream. This is reality. Thank goodness. Well, part of my, who I like to learn from and follow, people that have had near-death experiences. These are people that have passed away and then been revived, and a lot of them come back with messages from what they call the other side. There's several commonalities that many people have experienced, but one of the things that I'm using for this talk is the idea that when they get to that experience from the other side, when their body is clinically non-functioning, they say, oh, I realized that's real. This world here, that now it felt fake to them. It felt like that dream. That's what we are. We are just all existing in mind at one time. We are that infinite consciousness existing as each and every one of us for that thing to know itself in its infinite nature. So even the craziest examples I can think of in my mind, as soon as I think about it, it exists. It is experienced. It is now a part of the infinite collective consciousness. I'll let that sit for just a second so that we can get into the idea, then how do we start to shift that reality that we experience? And that's where Ernest Holmes comes in and brings up the idea. What he and several other teachers have said is that prayer is the number one most effective way to shift your reality. Vision boards, affirmations, contemplation. There's lots of ways that we help attract to us what we want to experience. But prayer, I know on a personal note or level, prayer absolutely has shifted major things in my life. When I had that realization that I was thinking this future of the collective consciousness shift, when I had that realization that I wasn't believing it, right away, something switched within me, and I make the joke that I apologize for causing the COVID lockdowns, because I was on my way to work at a steakhouse in downtown Orlando, and I had that realization. Beautiful vision came to my mind, had a beautiful treatment, and just what I visualized was amazing. I felt that shift within me. That was my last shift working in a restaurant, because 2 days later is when the lockdown came and everything shut up. And I'm seeing so many things like, all this stuff is all part of how it happened. But I know I can't convince the skeptics out there that I single-handedly caused this experience. But when you think about each individual world is your world and your perceptions, in my mind, that's what happened. And, I'm realistic, too. I know we're all connected and we're playing parts in each other's worlds. But just the drastic, amazing shifts that can happen when we start to believe. So, Ernest Holmes, in his wisdom, he studied all the religions that he could have access to. He studied classical philosophy and indigenous cultures, and he created, a compilation of all these things that are congruent, that run through all those things, and he called it the golden thread of truth. He did the same thing with prayer. It said, there's certain elements that when we include this in prayer, it seems to make the prayer more effective. It seems to actually cause shifts. And he called that spiritual mind treatment, or affirmative prayer. And that is where, in the finishing of the book that we've all been working with for the month, that it ends up. So I want to go through the steps as one way to shift our consciousness, to bring ourselves back into a place where we know we are in constant creation. So now, the very first step that he does, he calls it recognition. But this is really what it is. It's just acknowledging that there is only one. So that 8 billion times infinity multiverses that I talked about, if you could step outside of it and put infinity in a box, if you could, that's one thing. The oneness is real. We truly are all one. There is no separation. We are that one thing. That's all that exists. And so getting into the feeling of awe, this thing is so beyond human comprehension, and it's so huge. And when we go into prayer, the power is not in the words that we use, but it comes from there, because the words, when we find the right words, it touches our soul, and it ignites something. The more you practice it, you can feel it when you're connected and tapping into something. And so the first step is just recognizing, feeling, being in absolute awe and adoration of, wow, what an amazing universe we live in. The mysteries, the magic, the more you open up to it, it's just so completely mind-boggling. So we get to that place where we recognize that. And then the second step is that since there's only one, there's no option. You are that. And so you're aligning yourself with it. I know that I'm that. I know that I am this universe. I know that everything exists in mind. So as easy as mind has created the cosmos, I can create my own reality. Now, Ernest Holmes is also, people reference that he said, if you can just get these first two steps down, if you can get there, and if you can live from that space, your life would be everything you ever dreamt, everything you ever wanted. And I think that's where the master teachers, think of the Buddha or Jesus the Christ or Deepak, I think that's where people that did things that we would call miracles, that they said, it's just reality, it's not miracles. The people that knew that, I think that that's really, like Ernest Holmes said, that's where they dwelt. They knew who they were and who they are, and that's how they lived and where they're from. So that's the first two steps. We call the second one unification. So first we recognize that infinite with awe. We let that feeling well up. And then we settle into that comfort of knowing that I am that. And then we bring to mind what's called the realization step, is that whatever that thing you want, it already exists in mind. As soon as you had the thought or the desire, boom, it's there. So then, believing, absolutely it exists there, so why can't it exist here? Because if this is all mind, I'm ready. And so it's just that belief, and again, that feeling, that deep feeling, which leads us to the fourth step, which they call thanksgiving, but it's gratitude. So we know the power of gratitude. If you've ever done a gratitude journal, what we pay attention to when we start to appreciate the things in our lives that we like to experience, we start to experience more of those things. But in this text, or in this context, when you're in your prayer and you're in that feeling of being it, and you're in that feeling of experiencing that which you're manifesting, when you know it, you know it's real, you know it's manifesting, let yourself just be thankful for it. Thankful before you see it arrive in the physical world, because that's kind of like the sealing the deal. I'm thankful because I know it's already there. And so then it just goes to that last step, is I just let it be. It's already there. I'm happy. However it shows up, things show up in mysterious ways, and that's part of the joy and the excitement of living in this world. So when we start to manifest our world, it doesn't mean that everything is now rainbows, unicorns, and cupcakes. I wish it could be. But because there's still those challenges, which is all part of what continually keeps us on this path of growth and expansion. So just being grateful, because the things that show up, they often show up in different ways than you would expect. That being said, let's take it in and experience spiritual mind treatment to start creating that world that is more kind for more and more people. It is here. It is coming. It's here in mind. It's the desire within us that wants to see that is that same thing manifesting itself. It begins in that mind. So I just invite us all to be in the space, however you like to do it, and just bring your recognition to something that you find magnificent, that can only be from the divine or from the infinite. I like to picture the mountains, the vastness of the ocean. I like to picture the smile on an innocent child that just knows joy. These things are the little ways that science, that spirit, that evolution and higher thought whispers to us and winks to us. And when we're quiet and intentional about tuning into that, we can sense it. So there is only that one consciousness that is all life force, all creation. Whether it's physically real or not, it's all the one thing. And I know that I am that, and I know that everybody that hears these words is that. And I know everything in existence is that one infinite, ultimate thing. So everything that happens is all to remind us of our infinite nature, to remind us of the infinite nature and infinite potential of all that is. So consciousness being the only one reality, I affirm and avow that right now a kind world is already formed in that mind. The pictures of what that might look like, maybe they rise in your mind now. What would a more kind world look like? What would the helpers look like? What would your life look like? What would you be doing? What do you feel inspired to? I know that all of that is real in the mind of the infinite at this very second. And so as I tune into that frequency of greater expressions of a realization that we are stronger together, that we find a way to make life work for more and more individuals, that is already done in the mind of God or spirit or the infinite, whatever you call it. It's all that is, the thing itself, that it is constantly moving, bending towards more kindness, more fairness, and love in this universe. So knowing it's already done in mind, I let my heart open up. I allow a gentle smile on my face to say, thank you, Spirit. Thank you for putting us in this infinite, rich, and wild ride of physical existence. For every second, the joy, the pain, the hardship, the triumphs, all of it is the infinite manifesting itself in all of its aspects. So for this, I say thank you, thank you. So knowing that as we go forward, that love, that joy, that kindness guides us, carries us, and leads us, and we can affirm that and step into a brand new world that is shifting each millisecond of the day by sharing together these words, and so it is. So it is. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thank you. It's so great to be here, so thank you.
When I pray, I feel my heart go deeper, my heart go deeper into my God. When I pray, I feel my heart go deeper, my heart go deeper into my God. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. When I pray, I feel my soul go deeper, my soul go deeper into my God. When I pray, I feel my soul go deeper, my soul go deeper into my God. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. When I pray, I feel my love go deeper, my love go deeper into my God. When I pray, I feel my love go deeper, my love go deeper into my God. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray. Right here, right now, right where I am, I pray.